Welcome to Act 2 of 28 Years Later. This is probably the most visually pleasing act of the whole film. I found it really beautiful. It definitely is a tone shift, and it's really when you start to understand that not only are they taking a lot of liberties with the things like the alpha and the relationship with his father, but they're also willing to, on the goodwill that they have earned from you in this first act, where it was scary and intense and gory and fucked up, they give you a break from the tension and they're willing to play with the tone so that you can have a more well-rounded experience with the world, not necessarily just the story of these people with the infected in the island, but also the world outside of this and the experience of the mainland and the way that the shots even change from this very, close conflict, being right in people's faces to more landscape and to more of the scenery. You feel the expansiveness and you are kind of going with Spike on this journey of your mind opening. Because we are just like Spike. All we have known so far in this movie is the island and then going to the mainland and shooting a couple of zombies and getting trapped and seeing an alpha and making it back home. We're in the same boat as he is, but with those little breadcrumbs that we have gotten along the way, namely the breadcrumb from Grandpa, I think, the old guy in the house, saying that there's a doctor where Spike saw a fire in Act 1. That breadcrumb, among others, are what lead us to this more expanded idea of the universe that this movie is taking place in. So I think it's really genius that as his mind expands, so do the shots, so did the scenery. We get to see the horizon and all of its greenery. It's a little less nighttime, a little more daytime. It's just beautiful. Reminds me of Annihilation quite a bit, especially not just with those wide shots, but also when we're really close in on the flowers. Chef's kiss. So beautiful. And the horror element is still there. Yes, we see infected along the way, but even as we're getting this kind of like lighter, it's kind of prettier scenery and wider shots and it's not as panicky, the horror that comes in is that this little boy and this confused woman are in way over their head. They're going on a journey that they're not prepared for. And I do think that Act 2 really starts when he lights that shed on fire, because the way that he gets his mom out of the island, which no one would have ever allowed if they had known, is he starts a fire to distract people and then he, kind of runs off. So he's kind of asserting his independence. And yes, he kind of thinks he can do it, but he also knows that he's not confident with a bow. And then we're put in this situation where Isla, the mother, has a moment of lucidity. And she can understand now that she's on the mainland with her son, that Jesse is nowhere to be found. They're in a horrific, dire situation. And even more horrific and dire than the situation that she has been put in and that Spike has put himself in is the situation in which she doesn't have enough continuity of time and space to be able to protect her son or save herself. So not only does she have that moment of lucidity to realize it, she loses that lucidity right before our eyes. And that is horrific. So we're kind of gearing up where we're changing from this, the horror is the infected, to the horror is we're in a world without modern medicine. We are in a world where it's not easy to navigate. And these are the only two people that we have to get us there. And as a viewer, you can, of course, look at Spike and say, no, don't do this. But it's like, don't open that door. Don't go in that place. And he does it anyway. We can't stop him because he believes he's on his own rite of passage. He's taking agency and control of his life and he's bringing his mom down with him, right? So we do get a really gorgeous scene where they're in kind of a castle, a cathedral. It's really beautiful. There is a moment where she actually saves him. But what's so, funny and twisted about that is that she doesn't remember doing it. He doesn't know what happened. She doesn't know what happened. But the storytellers give us a glimpse of at night when, Spike says that he's going to go keep watch. He's going to watch over everybody, which by everybody, I mean just his mom. And he has his bow and arrow. He falls asleep. And one of the crawlers, this kind of chunky one, is coming up to eat him, first eating his shoelace like a worm. That slow, terrifying tension is just gorgeous. And in this setting, and it brings back what we were talking about in the first act about the medieval through line of like, oh, there was a medieval Britain and it was the foundation for whatever. And it's like, well, there were other things happening in the world during medieval times, and most of them were more impressive than what was going on in Britain. But yes, British medieval times is like very popular and you think it's super cool. And we're in the ruins of that as this is happening, and it is the woman who saves the boy. But then she doesn't remember it. So she doesn't really get to celebrate that. It's invisible, which, I mean, that's pretty good as far as like the narrative of masculinity versus femininity and the value of a man versus a woman. And, in those patriarchal systems, yeah, a 12-year-old boy is more competent than an adult woman. Like, that's the point of the patriarchy, is that you set men up to be on that trajectory. So it's just a little tiny blip of that. We start to see that Isla is seeing her dad in her son, and so often mistaking him for his grandpa. We get some really sweet moments of seeing them interact and seeing how they play together and how they love one another, which we haven't really get to see too much of yet. She does seem to have a little bit more lucidity as we're going through, but she is regressing a lot too. And then we get to the gas station. So, you can't really fight any of the infected without more infected hearing you. So even if you're able to shoot an infected and kill them, they scream. So now we're getting chased by the infected, right? And in the gas station where they take shelter, there is some kind of chemical reaction going on in there. It's like gas that they inhale. They're passing out. And then they are saved by a new character, Eric. Now, earlier we did see that there was like a military troop on the island. What Eric says is that he was in a shipwreck. He was in the Navy, and he was the survivors made it to land. He's the only one surviving now. And we can kind of infer that he was in a tunnel when one of the alphas attacked them and popped a head off, right? So even with their machine guns, even with all of their weapons and all of their training, they were not able to take down an alpha. So that does not bode well for this little boy and his bow and arrow. But he does, Eric has a really, on this theme of masculinity, like he's in an emotional situation where he's confused, he's scared, he doesn't know if he can trust these people. He has like found these people and he has helped them, and now he needs help from them, and he feels like this insecurity and this overwhelm. And the only emotional reaction that he can have from that is this intense anger. He totally spins out and embarrasses himself with how angry and frustrated he is. And I mean, Eric's not that much older. I mean, I don't know if they said his age, like 18, 19 is what I'm thinking. He's a young kid. He's a boy. And he's in this position that he put himself in the Navy, where now he has been abandoned too. So in the same way that the community on the island says that there are no rescues, the Swedish Navy is the same way. Like once you set foot on land here, you are in quarantine and you cannot come out. So he is lost and abandoned. So we kind of watch him, interact with them. He's very funny. He's very playful. He has an iPhone, which is like news to Spike. What is this? Something he's never seen before. Eric is saying things that we don't understand. And this is really opening the world up for us. Now we can see that outside of this quarantined area, life has kind of gone on as normal. Technology has continued to develop. Culture has continued to go on. It is a piece of the world that these quarantined people will never see, as far as we know. So this is a dark place for Eric to be too. This is like his own little glimpse of horror, is that now he is stranded, and maybe there is some hope in that he could find community, but really he seems quite self-centered. He seems really trigger happy, and that does come to pass later when, and this scene is just so insane, but we see the birth of a baby from from an infected woman. And Isla is the doula for the birth, and they make eye contact. They have this really gorgeous moment together where she's giving birth. Spike cuts the umbilical cord. It is crazy. It's fucked up. I loved it. It was so weird. And I was fully ready for like a Dawn of the Dead zombie baby, but we got a placenta protected, fully uninfected child. Maybe it'll do a Last of Us thing where there's some immunity later in the sequels. Who knows? But as far as we know, it's just a regular placenta-protected, uninfected child. But after this rage virus, takes a break for a second so that, because, this is a woman. This is a human woman who just had a baby, and she has a rage virus. But while she's in this experience of giving birth, the rage virus kind of goes into the background, but then it comes back after the birth, and like boom, 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 Eric is just off to the races with his machine gun, and it is that noise that ultimately gets him killed. He is, decapitated by the Alpha. The Alpha chases Mom and Spike out of the train car. It is so suspenseful, and that's kind of where the movie really picks back up with the running and the blood. It's like, okay, now it's back on, like you are feeling the tension, right? And we are saved from this Alpha by a dart out of a blow dart, and then we are introduced to the doctor. The doctor is covered in this like orange substance that we learn is iodine, because it's a prophylactic against the virus. Apparently he's been doing some experiments out there, and he looks insane, but we also don't know yet if he is insane, because the last thing we heard, even though it wasn't really that great of a story, is that he was burning bodies, and that's what made him crazy. Who's to say? Thank you, doctor, for saving us. He actually, which is really interesting, is he does sedate the Alpha infected, but then they just kind of go, right? And yes, like we see the Alpha infected's giant cock. We take the head of the soldier out of his head, and then we go back to the camp where the doctor has built a beautiful temple of bones. So this bone pyramid that you see in the posters, that is at the doctor's camp. It's a memento mori. It's a memorial for all of the people that have passed that he's been able to, burn the flesh off of and cool. He's, taken upon himself to kind of create this life for himself where he's studying and he's learning, and he's in more of a communion with the infected. He also has a bridge that protects him, so that his camp is a little less accessible. But what we do find is it's not impenetrable. We have this really sad, saccharine moment where we learn that Isla has brain cancer based on the kind of, based on the primitive exam that the doctor is able to give her. And it's sad. We find out that she kind of knew in her moments of lucidity that she might have cancer, which is a huge betrayal. But in these moments where we're kind of getting to know the doctor, we're getting to know his story, we're finding that he is kind of insane, just like everybody else in this quarantined world at the time. But he's also coping with reality in a much more spiritual way. His intelligence has enabled him to kind of look from the outside in at this experience. And, he has built for himself another insular isolationist community of one, where he is able to kind of live out his purpose in this new, apocalyptic way, which is with this gorgeous bone temple. Now, we first see how the doctor is doing this with Eric's head. So he takes Eric's head, he burns it in this kind of, makeshift crematorium, not too hot to burn the bones. He puts it in water, he rinses it, and that's how he's gotten these skulls. It's fucked up. It's super cool. It's super crazy. It to me feels like kind of what this series is all about, which is how human beings cope with trauma in the best way they know how. And if you were to witness something like that, which is totally unprecedented, you've never seen anything like this before, and there's infected all around you, it's the most horrific, violent, and fucked up thing any of us could ever see. What would you do? You know? As we see in the first one, some people would try to build their own, patriarchal society where they don't care about women's consent and they, live out their most violent, fucked up fantasies. As we see in the second movie, some people would abandon their spouse and they would make a run for it and they would lie about it to the ends of the earth, even to the point where they would consider even like killing their spouse intentionally so that they wouldn't have to tell, right? And in this one, we see a few different coping mechanisms. We see the way that the island has reacted and the way the doctor has reacted and the way that Spike reacts, which is ultimately the point of the movie, is after witnessing all of that, what are you going to do, little boy? After seeing all of this and learning about the outside world and what's going on the mainland, seeing all of these violent, horrific things, what are you going to do with that? What's your coping mechanism going to be? Are you going to build a temple of bones? I thought he might stay with the doctor, and that would have been an okay ending. But then, they kind of, we'll talk about Act 3, but as we're wrapping up Act 2, what we're really seeing, which I consider to be kind of the death of Isla, where she, is killed, essentially. She's euthanized by the doctor, and Spike is drugged so that he doesn't have to feel the pain of it, which we also kind of see in the first movie. And we've also, like, knowing what we know now, we've seen so much of the mainland. We even wonder, what kind of life is there for Spike on his own without his mother? And he wonders the same thing. He's so young and he really thought that there was going to be a cure here. He really thought the doctor was going to be able to help her. And I think as audience members, we kind of knew that wasn't the case. The dad knew that wasn't the case. Even the mom knew that wasn't the case. And no one was brave enough in the midst of all of this violence and carnage to say, not only do we not know what's happening, but even if we did kind of know, there really would be nothing we could do. It's the cowardice of the adults in that situation that lead to Spike ever having to go see the doctor in the first place. All it would have taken is a frank conversation from dad saying, Mom is sick. We think it's a brain tumor, which is caused by cancer. There's no cure for cancer because we don't have medicine. So we want to give her the best life that we can and take care of her while we can. No brave adult was willing to have that conversation with him. And so he carries out this narrative that somehow there's going to be healing on the other side of this journey, which is why he's so passionate about it. And then the disappointment, which is so mundane to us now, someone dying of cancer. And of course, horrific and awful. But in the context of this world, it is very mundane as far as deaths go. And that is why the commitment of the doctor to honoring death in such a way, and his ability to look death in the face in a way that the people that live on Holy Island never will, is a huge gift to Spike. And I think that also changes his perspective and leads him to make the decisions that he makes in Act 3, which we will talk about in the next video. Thanks for watching.